Hi there, it's Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. These are the 3 cards that we are going to be creating, and they're all pretty similar using a similar technique. So I did realize that I had no diamond kind of shaped dies, so I purchased some from AliExpress, and the link will be in the description box below. And I think there's about 8 in the set maybe, and so I have picked these 2 sizes here. They are kind of around the middle of all of them, size-wise. And I kind of had a rough idea of sort of a patchwork, piecing them all together. That was my plan anyhow. So sitting on my table here, I have 3 pieces of Nina Solar White 80-pound paper, and then I have all of these diamonds that are cut out of the smaller diamonds. So the first one, I just cut out any paper that I had, literally. This is some glitter paper. These are from some Lawn Fawn stamps, paper pads, 6x6 paper pads. This one here is from the Watercolor Wishes one. This is some fog coloured cardstock from Simon Says Stamp. And I know it's kind of hard to see, sorry, but these are some cut out from wood grain paper. And then these are just patterns that I had. And then I did some craft paper. I did some like foiled paper, and then I also did some plain white paper, and I embossed them in my embossing folders just to give some of them a little bit of texture. And I actually also have a piece of alcohol, like Yupa paper, that has alcohol ink on it. So I literally just went through my stash, went through my little scraps pile, and just got everything out that I thought might go. Now I'm adding some Stick It adhesive. This is super thin adhesive, kind of double-sided, that I'm just covering my entire card front with, because I want to stick all of these little diamonds, and there are several ways to do this, and this is just the first way I try at the beginning. So I'm going to take off the release paper, and I did find that when I was trying to kind of line up the very first diamond, it just really didn't matter. I started to get worried about it being straight, but you actually can't tell no matter what, so I didn't bother with the rest. And then all I'm trying to do is just not put the same pattern beside each other. That's the only thing I was worried about. And of course, somewhat making sure the colours kind of went together. And then, yeah, with the Stick It adhesive, it's really easy because obviously the whole panel is sticky. So you just kind of stick them down, and it went by really fast, and I just had fun kind of piecing them together and seeing what I liked. I was trying to make sure that I had roughly 3 of each pattern, and I know I've done one wrong here, which I will fix in just a second. It goes that way, not sideways. And yeah, so I was just having a ball kind of putting things next to each other, and then I'm just turned it over and am cutting around the outside of that 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches sized card front. And then I am using some of the scraps to just fill in the tiny wee triangles that I still have empty there. There's no point using whole pieces, so I'm just using the scraps, and I quite like the look of that one. So I'm just going to do the same thing again. This one is the larger diamonds, and I'm using liquid glue. You can, like as I said, there are so many ways that you can go about this. You can use the Stick It, you can use double-sided adhesive, just like tape that is an inch wide or half an inch wide or something, and just put several strips of that down on your panel. There's lots of ways depending on what you have available. So as I said, these are the bigger diamonds, so I definitely need less of them, and I'm kind of just setting them out a little bit on this one before I stuck them all down. But I am using liquid glue, and sometimes I put it on the back of the diamond and sometimes I put it down on the paper. Doesn't really matter. And some of the papers are the same and some are a little bit different. I used several different embossing folders and things when I was looking for patterns that would go well with the colours and things that I already had, the textures and patterns that I already had. So yeah, I was really just having a lot of fun putting all these little pieces together, and it always feels good to use up scraps that you kind of put away for that sometime I'll use later. So yeah, and then I'm going to cut around the outside of this one and do exactly the same thing, fill in any gaps that I still have. This one I probably did have to wait, be a wee bit more careful. Sometimes I had to wait a minute or two for the glue to dry so that I could cut the edges off without losing the piece from the card panel. And then this is back to the smaller diamonds again. And again, I'm really just using up the leftovers of what I had, but I still want to make sure all the pieces go together this time. So I am just kind of setting it out first. Yeah, to make sure I like what I have. So with this card front though, I'm just going to use the same little liquid glue. And what I did think would be really cool is that you could pop some of these up, like pop some of them up on with foam tape or foam squares or something. And that would kind of give it a really cool effect as well. I was just on a roll at this time, and as per usual, my time is always limited, so I was just trying to get this done before little people were waking up from naps, etc. So I am just putting this all down with liquid glue. You saw before that I already kind of had set out my pattern, so I was really just popping it all down. And I do like the glitter cardstock. I think everybody has like stashes of random paper and things that you can use, so that's really what I was delving into when I was thinking about this. I just had fun and had a look through all of my supplies and all of my scrap boxes and cut out everything. So I'm just going to cut out the final bits of these, and then in a second I will show you the 3 finished cards. And the 2 on the left are the smaller diamonds, and the one on the right is the larger diamonds. I have this Hero Arts, I think this is £48 maybe, vellum, and then these are the stitch circles that I'm going to use, and then I cut out 2 different sizes of those, and I also cut out one of those banners that I showed you on the front. Both of those are from AliExpress, and I will try and remember to link those down below, as is the stamp set that I'm going to be using today. The problem with using vellum, is that you can see through, obviously, and you can also see when you use any adhesive. I know that there are like vellum adhesives and things that you supposedly cannot see. I think that in my experience, I feel like I can always see them. And those sorts of things really get to me. So you'll see in a minute how I end up going about that. And it's kind of a shame because I end up losing lots of the pattern. I really like the card fronts that I made. I probably was in a bit of a hurry and wasn't so sold on what I did with the sentiments, but that's okay. We all live and we learn. So I have 3 different sentiments for the 3 different card fronts, and I am going to use my Misty in some of them, and then others I will just stamp. So this is one of the kind of rectangular banners, and this one is going to say celebrate. I have a little bit of my powder tool from EK Success, just so that I hopefully don't get any little stray embossing powder. And I'm using some VersaFine Onyx black ink to stamp the celebrate. And the good thing with this ink is that it's a pigment ink, so it stays wet a little bit longer, which enables me to put some embossing powder on. I apologise that me putting the embossing powder on is not in screen, it's to the right of me, and I'm just putting some clear embossing powder on from Wow. I just completely forgot about the camera, I think, and that I needed to be on screen, so I apologise. And this one is going to say cheers, and I'm doing this one in my Misty, and just doing exactly the same thing. I do the same technique for all 3 of them, just for ease of use, really, to make it easier on me. So there we go. I'm putting the embossing powder on. And one thing with this, even when you use the black ink, and this black ink is normally really nice and dark, and it's my favorite. I use it all the time, as you guys have probably seen in my videos. However, when you use it on vellum and you clear heat emboss it, it does tend to turn more of like a slate, sort of just an ever so slightly lighter color. It still looks fine though. And then just a little side note as to why I'm using this particular vellum. This is kind of more heavyweight vellum. I think it's 48 pound maybe, and so it holds up to the heat embossing much better. So I'm not getting any warping at all when I heat emboss it. And now I have a little friend come to join me on my knee while I'm doing my voiceover. Can you say hello? Hello. And so we will finish off the video together, won't we? So as I was saying, we get absolutely, don't get any warping at all. So here's where I was trying to cover up the fact about seeing the adhesive through the vellum. So I have some more of the sticker adhesive here, and I've just adhered it to the whole back of the vellum. This is the way that I combat being able to see it. I just add something to the entire back of the vellum, and I do find that these double-sided adhesive sheets are the best way to do that. Like there's lots of different companies that make them, though definitely not just Stick It. Even scrapbook.com make a really good kind of more affordable adhesive. So I also thought that I wanted to put a silver glittery kind of background to this one. So I'm just cutting this down a little bit so that you are able to see it, and then I will cut this one down to, I think I end up cutting it down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So this will cover the whole card front, and then, but you'll only be able to see a little bit of it around the edges. And then, because I like to make the most of my glitter paper, I cut out a little rectangle from the middle, and nobody will ever know this or see this apart from you guys, obviously. And this way I'm able to use this little rectangle from the middle to cut out sentiments or use for a different project. So from there I'm just going to use a little bit of liquid glue and I'm going to put it on the back of the card panel, and then I'll adhere it down to the little glitter cardstock. And then because it is glitter cardstock and I want it to adhere really well, I'm going to set this aside and put something heavy on top of it, just so that I know that it's going to adhere down really well, because I do not want it falling apart on anybody or any recipient who gets it. So this is the Lawn Fawn Watercolor Wishes paper pad. I have purchased a couple of these because this is one of my favorite paper pads of all time. So for the last two card bases, I'm just going to use this kind of tealy color and then a more blue color, and these will be the matte layers for the remaining two cards. So again, I'm just trimming a little bit off each side of these other two cards so that you can actually see the matte layer, because these little card panels started off as 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. That's just what I have a big stash of, and then I cut them down to what I need. So again, using my double-sided adhesive, this is from AliExpress as well, and just doing my little trick where I pull back a little corner and then I have a little bit in the middle, and this way I'm able to line up the layers perfectly, and then I just pull those little release tabs that I have and everything's lined up. So I have cut out some white paper circles. These are also out of the same white that the base cardstock was, not that it matters because you can't see it. And I'm just going to, again, because you can see adhesive through vellum, I am going to make sure that entire circle is covered in, I think this is still the Stick It adhesive, so just cover the entire circle, and then I'm going to stick it onto the back of the vellum circle so that I can then add some the vellum circle to the card front without seeing any adhesive through it. But anyhow, so here is back to that glittery one, and I know I jump around a little bit in this video, so I am sorry about that, but I am going to use some foam tape. This is from AliExpress, and I'm going to use this nice thick foam tape and then some squares, just because I have that little bit down the middle, down the edge that wasn't covered in foam. So the sentiment is kind of the part of the card that I chose to have a little bit of dimension, so it stands up off the card a little bit, and then I'm just going to turn it over and trim off the edge and try and make sure I can get it nice and straight. And that pretty much finishes off the card. I feel like there's enough bling and there's enough going on that I'm not going to add anything else to it. This is the one that I added the Stick It adhesive to, and I'm just going to add it to the back of this vellum circle, and then again I will use some foam circles. These are foam circles also that I purchased from AliExpress, which I've been really using lots lately and enjoying. And then I'm going to stick it just to the side and again cut the edge off just for something a little different. And then from here I am just adding them onto some 110-pound Nina Solar White card bases with plenty of glue. And as I said, the matte layer is the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so they will take up the entire card front. So there's that little trick again, just pulling off the side, just pulling up a little tab to pull, sorry. And then I have this covered in the scrapbook.com double-sided adhesive, which obviously I got from scrapbook.com. And I go there quite a bit for anything that I need that's kind of, if I can't get it from AliExpress, I quite like the scrapbook.com website for the other little bits and pieces. So yeah, just using those little foam circles. And then with this one, I was trying to decide where I'd like it to go, but it felt like when I put it straight in the middle, I covered up too much. So you can see I'm struggling with the decision here, but never mind. Straight in the middle it goes, and then adhere it to a card base. That was my cards for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed all 3 of them, and give it a go with any shapes that you have. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.